Well, hello, thank you for joining me today again on the Church History Trail. We're continuing here in COMBER, County Down. And where we are now is we're actually standing in the graveyard and in the premises of the non-subscribing church here in COMBER. And who I have with me here is, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Okay, my name is Sandra Gilpin, and this is my husband, Ian Gilpin, who's the minister of this congregation.
Hello,
I'll not introduce myself, my wife's already done.
It's great to meet you. So you have a big connection here with the Titanic.
Yes.
And what actually is that what is that connection?
Well, it goes back a fair distance because the site that we're standing on, this land was acquired on a 999-year lease by James Andrews, who was the great-grandfather of Thomas Andrews. So James had intent to build his home here. So where the church is, we reckon that is where he would be building his house.
Yes.
Not today is the day to be here for the view, but normally you would get a lovely view of Scrabo and down the inner valley. So a view of the Dundonald Hills, and I always say it's one of the best sites in COMBER.
Now I have a question for you. The date stone there, 1838. What can you tell us about that?
Well, that was the date when the foundation stone would have been laid. It took roughly 2 years to complete the structure, and the slight delay in the process was that on the 6th of January 1839, the Feast of Epiphany, there was an enormous storm, a hurricane.
The night of the big wind, was that?
The big wind, so it swept through Ireland. A lot of damage. The partial structure of the meeting house was hit and badly damaged by one of the sails of
the windmill,
which had been standing on this site, and which gave the site its name, the windmill.
Now I'm going to ask you a question about the windmill. I don't know if you'll be able to answer or not, but do you know exactly where that windmill stood here?
It's got to be pretty close to where we're standing. It can't. I mean, it's got to be somewhere, maybe in somewhere where Desi's car is.
Yes.
And of course, at that time, a lot of windmills in this part of the Ards. And when you think about it, it was very clean, carbon neutral energy.
The recollections that I have of the windmills is not actually from COMBER, but because I didn't know there was one in COMBER, but it's actually from Malile, which I've been inside when I was a child.
Yeah.
You know. So would you like to show us then the monument then what did you call the gentleman again? The Titanic.
Right, well, Thomas Andrews.
Thomas Andrews. Would you like to show us the monument here?
Well, if we go down the path.
Yes. And this is the view here you were talking about?
Yes.
Not the best.
It's still very good. You can actually see, you can still see Scrabo here. I'll just zoom in and try and let you see that.
Well, there's a little local rhyme, I think Desi would know this one. When Scrabo's got his cap on, Gillespie gets his face washed. So today, it's not maybe a total cap, but pretty close to it.
And so this here is the...
So this is the grave. As you can see, there would be two lines there. I don't know if it's maybe 6 graves in total. But
if you want to turn around, then I just stand here so they can get the both in.
And the one closest to us, that is actually in the name of William James Purry. Now, William James Purry, he died, I think he was on a ship just north of Cuba. So his body was brought back, went to New York, then into England, and then to Belfast.
Yes.
He's actually buried in ground, which is Carlisle ground. That was the ground that belonged to his wife's family. So I'm not too sure whether he had decided he wouldn't be buried in COMBER, but originally he had intended to be buried here along with his mother. His father is actually buried in New York City in Greenwood Cemetery. He had died of cholera whenever Lord Purry, I think, was just about 2 years of age, and that time he was just I think he was William Purry, and then they added his father's name in because obviously
yes.
no more sons.
And again, what did you call the gentleman here? The Titanic engineer?
Oh, Thomas Andrews.
Thomas Andrews.
He's
so
the son of a Thomas Andrews as well.
So he's not actually buried here because he was lost at sea. Am I correct in saying that?
So every other member of his family is buried in this ground.
Yes.
They would have been the first of the Andrews family to be buried here. Prior to that, the family would have their family graves in the Church of Ireland. There's a little Andrews vault in at the gate as you go in. They also had a connection with First COMBER Presbyterian Church.
Yes.
But, so they've got
Well, I'll maybe let
Quite a number of
the
connections.
viewers have a wee joke, have a wee look here at the at what it says here.
So need to come around to this side.
Yes, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but is there a prime minister in this plot as well?
Okay, well, just firstly with the memorial to Thomas, a couple of things we generally point out. It says SS Titanic, which would be the steamship Titanic, whereas everybody knows it's the RMS, the Royal Mail steamer. And
Yes.
I think it's just interesting because it shows how he had talked about it and how the family viewed it. They were still calling it the SS Titanic. Also, we've got the nice tribute to him, telling us exactly what they thought about him: pure, just, generous, affectionate and heroic.
Yes.
At one point now, I can remember sort of thinking, oh, it's actually a very modest grave considering what a prominent family they are in the town, and quite a modest memorial for Thomas. And then you realise there's the Andrews Memorial Hall, and that was a huge project. They're working on that more or less immediately afterwards. There's a couple of things they do. First of all, they commission a biography, and that's the one written by Shan Bullock. And in addition to that, they also then get themselves organised to do the hall. The other comment I always make about the hall is it's not something useless. I mean, you go to Trafalgar Square, you've got Nelson's Column, landmark and all the rest of it, but it's not actually much use to anybody. The Andrews Memorial Hall, it was meant to be something that would serve the community, and again I think that shows something about the character of the family. Very practical,
Yes.
very much rooted in their community and very much wanting to serve their community and promote their community.
Very good.
So with the entertainments, they would have dances. I think there's a fair number of romances were sparked off with the dances in the Andrews Memorial Hall. There would have been wedding receptions. There was even at one point the cinema, and they would have had pictures shown there before they had the picture house and the cinema in Comber. Pool room, and then I think was there a bowling green outside, and they played tennis. Lots of things for the community. So very much something that was to serve the community. And
I think with Thomas Andrews, he started as a boy, didn't he? Young man, in the
he's one of the
part of the
premium
but he
apprentices.
shot up through the ranks, didn't he? He actually became. Did he become really one of the top board men?
He's one of the directors.
One of the directors.
On the memorial, it says he's the head of the designing team.
Yes.
There's a great controversy about how much he actually designed. I think they reckon Alexander Carlyle was one of the principal people who had
right.
been involved in these ships. But it's a team, and it's like in a school. I mean, the headmaster doesn't teach every child, but
No.
you know they oversee the board of governors. So it's the same sort of a thing. There's a lot of teamwork going on.
One other thing before we wrap up the wee video then, who I just mentioned there, the Prime Minister.
Oh yes, that's around the corner here. You'll see his. So again, we're a very high-achieving family. James Andrews and another brother was the Lord Chief Justice in the Northern Irish courts in Belfast. This panel here, you can see it's John M. Andrews, John Miller Andrews, and he was Thomas's older brother. In the actual memorial service, the Reverend Dunkley says that the two brothers were very close. They were just like twins.
Yes.
Do you want to take a wee look round to the hall and I'll tell about the kittens?
Yes.
Okay.
That's great. We couldn't have picked a worse day with the weather, unfortunately.
Well, we need the rain in order to grow the crops, isn't that it?
That's it. I'll just give the viewers here a wee look at the church from the side, just to let them see it. Because a lot of the viewers like buildings.
Up until about 2001, you wouldn't have seen this stonework. It
Yes.
was covered with rendering, but it's the same as the church hall
See the church hall there, the date is
in 1878.
1878, yes. And so what were you saying there?
Well, we had an extensive renovation, I think about 2001, and they took the rendering off. The original plan had been to put it back on again, new rendering obviously. But when they saw the stonework, they decided it was so fine they wanted to
You want
retain
to
it.
stand around there and
So
then I'll,
this is it.
yep. And I'll let the viewers see it then. That's great.
So the Original building, 1838 was the church. After that they built the manse, which is just around the corner, about 20 years later. And then they decided they needed to extend the facility, so they built a church hall, what they called a schoolroom. So part of the project was to have a bazaar to raise money. And somebody had a kitten problem, so they sent their kittens to the bazaar. Needless to say, you bring little kittens to a place where there's a lot of activity, they all scatter. And in the memorial sermon, the Reverend Dunkley relates this story. It's the only source that we have for it. The kittens had all been gathered up, but one little kitten had hidden away in a place that was inaccessible. We don't know where that was, but the young Thomas, it was a small child, couldn't have been more than about 5 or 6. And he coaxes and coaxes until eventually he gets the little cat to come to him. Of course, his father has to buy the cat. And that's the little story that we have from his childhood, the only one. And the Reverend Dunkley, he actually brings out what this tells us about Thomas's character, how the little animal had trusted him, how he's got perseverance and patience. And again, just a lovely story. Would you like to get into the church?
Well, what I'm going to do just for a wee second is I'm going to let them see just quickly the building here. This is the church hall. And then what I'll do is I'll let them just have a wee quick view of the manse, which is that building there. And so I'd like to thank, sorry, I forgot your names again. What does it say? Ian and Sandra. So what we'll do is we'll wrap this wee video up, and then we'll do another one inside, if that's okay. So again, if you enjoy the channel, then please like and subscribe. God bless.